I'm out in the woods today working on creating some deer trails through my woods. I specifically am trying to track the deer from a bedding area that I'd created a couple days ago and have them follow my side of a fence row and not cross onto the neighbor's property. Where I am working at right here is between two areas that I created by hinge cutting trees that I'm hoping the deer will use for bedding areas. In order to make the deer feel more comfortable in these bedding areas, they have to have an easy way in and out, along with a view of the area around them. By creating this trail, it gives the deer a clear path that they can walk to get to either one of these bedding areas, and it goes to the backfield behind the woods, and it comes out into my woods. So deer traveling the fence row from the field behind will have an easy way to get into the woods and into those bedding areas. Now that the trail is made to the woods, I have to clear a trail through the woods that'll keep the deer on the path that I want them to go on. Several times over the years, I have added new trails to my woods, and every time I create a trail, the deer are always quick to follow and take that route. So I should have no reason to expect any different from this trail that I'm making specifically for the deer that I will not be using on a regular basis to drive the gator or the tractor down for cutting firewood. The first step in creating these trails is to find a path that I can easily get down and cut up the trees and the larger branches laying on the trail. And I always like to have a path wide enough that I can actually get the tractor down it to help clear back any brush or anything that needs to be removed. I will also bring the tractor out here and rototill this path, exposing the dirt underneath the ground. By doing this, it'll make the deer feel more safe and secure as they can sneak through the woods down their new trail much more quietly. As I pull larger logs off of the area that I had to cut up to make the trail, I use them to line the edges of the trail, and it's like a natural fencing along the path that I want the deer to take. I'm going to use the tractor bucket and scrape the ground to make sure that I didn't miss any large logs underneath this debris, and I also like to do that to make sure there's no hidden fence post or large sharp objects. When I was putting in my food plots, I actually rototilled up a old truck bumper, so you never know what's hidden in the ground out in these old farmlands. Now that I'm confident that there's no large debris still down here, I can kick on the rototiller, and I can really make this a nice, obvious trail for these deer to come down and follow. I'm going to go ahead and grab that camera and bring it up to where the tractor's at, and I'll show you an example of what I do with logs once I cut them up. I have this hinge cut here, and by stacking the logs underneath that hinge cut, it's going to help keep the deer from wanting to go through there. That was a high enough hinge cut before that the deer could have easily crawled under that, but now they have a second obstacle in the way that's going to probably prevent them from using that tree to go under. I cannot fit the tractor between these two small trees here, and I don't want to cut either one of them down because it makes a nice natural area to draw the deer in between to keep them going on this trail. The other thing that I foresee is this smaller tree to the left is going to be a nice spot for the deer to scrape the ground this fall during the rut. There's a couple of these trees that have low overhanging branches that go over the trail that I'm creating, and I'm leaving all of those low overhanging branches for that same specific reason and the purpose of the deer scrapes on the ground. I want to make sure to connect these trails the best I can with the area that I'm rototilling and working up. I don't want to have it look too dissimilar the entire length of the trail, otherwise the deer might not feel as comfortable using the trail and turn off in one direction or the other. If the trail looks the same and have the same feel all the way down it, they're going to follow it from start to finish because they'll have no reason to change their course. Since I can't fit between those two trees, I have to go around and start the trail from the other direction. Where the tractor's parked at right now is where this trail will end and connect to another trail that I have that runs through my woods. And the deer already use this other trail heavily, so this will just be a nice connecting point for the new trail. Even though there is snow and ice on the ground, the tractor sinks in pretty good, and it's still really soft ground underneath that first layer of leaves. Now that I have the larger stuff out of the way, I can drag backwards with that tractor bucket and make sure that I scrape everything off the surface that I can before I back in and use the rototiller. The more leaves that I can scrape off now, the better that soil is going to look once I get this rototilled, and that's important for the next step in this process. I'll back on down here with that rototiller and work this up real quick, and then the main part of making this trail will be done. The next step in this process is to keep the trail appealing for the deer, and to do that, I'm going to walk through and spread some clover seed on this trail. I recently did several hinge cuts along this area, exposing the ground to more sunlight, so this clover seed should grow just fine along here and give the deer an extra food source as they follow the trail. Additionally, I'm hanging a salt lick on a tree about halfway down the trail just to give the deer that extra reason to come down my trail instead of going rogue through the woods. Now you can see the areas that I have created for a bedding area for the deer, and the main trail that comes in from the field and back through this bedding area pops out to the new trail that we just made. And that deer can follow this trail right around past all three of the bedding areas. And the bedding areas tie right into that natural fence row that I made out of the trees that I hand cut and dropped into the woods. You can see all the trees laying there on the left to help keep the deer on my side of the woods, and with this new trail that they have to follow, they should have no reason to want to cross over to the left and go onto the neighbor's property when they can follow this, have a salt lick, eat some clover, and pop right out onto the main trail through the woods that they like to follow anyways, that will lead them to the new food plots that I'm establishing.